Hi, this is Gary Goodwin, founder of the Armchair Dreamer, and welcome. This is the place to come for tips, tools, and techniques for visualizing, imagining, and dreaming. To be masterful armchair dreamers, we need to look across time. We need to search for techniques, regardless if they have just popped up in the last 2 months in a scientific journal over 100 years ago by the early 20th century psychologists, or even further back. Today we're going to go back several hundreds of years to the time of Da Vinci, to Da Vinci himself. I think it's safe to conclude that Da Vinci was a good visualizer, that he could see something in his head, he could work with it on paper, he could go back to his head and continue to refine, and some of that was translated into into actual works of art or inventions. In addition to his own work, he also had students that he wanted to help polish and develop into master painters and sculptors. No one knows exactly everything that he covered and how much of an influence he had on those students, but we can get some sense from his writings. Today we're going to be looking at the collection of writings that were around the topic of what would be of interest, tips and tools for painters, how to look at and develop perspective, how to understand lighting, how to understand the influences of color. But within that is an approach that is meant to help the painter to see in new ways and to be more creative and to use more of their imagination. I'll go ahead and read some of the passages. Do not despise my opinion when I remind you that it should not be hard for you to stop sometimes and look into the stains of walls, or the ashes of a fire, or clouds, or mud, or like places, in which, if you consider them well, you may find really marvelous ideas. Look at walls splashed with a number of stains, or stones of various mixed colors. If you have to invent some scene, you can see their resemblances to a number of landscapes, adorned with mountains, rivers, rocks, trees, great plains, valleys, and hills in various ways. Also, you can see various battles and lively postures of strange figures, expressions on faces, costumes, and an infinite number of things, which you can reduce to good integrated form. This happens in such walls and varicolored stones, which act like the sound of bells, in whose pealing you can find every name and word that you can imagine. By indistinct things, the mind is stimulated to new inventions. How is this possible? How is it possible to look at things that people walk by, never give it another thought? How is it possible if we really look at those things, we're going to see these important ideas, important inventions, important creativity, important technique for visualization and imagination? How is this possible? If Da Vinci was here today, he would probably start off by telling us to switch to the visual, that when we're just open to looking at something visual, we start to slow down our thinking process, slow down our analytical processes. We're stopping being so verbal, so focused on past and future, and we're just present, just attending in a nonlinear, more abstract way to what's in front of us. If he could see how we live these days, I'm sure he would say, slow down. The only way you're going to be able to really look is, first of all, slow down. You can't rush over this or you'll see nothing. And the second part of this is stop pushing so hard. Leave your expectations, push them to the side, and just slow down and look without an agenda. Don't worry, you're going to be able to do this, he would tell us. He would point out that there are several ways in which we are hardwired to make this happen, to be able to look at something that appears to have nothing in it and then to see something more. The human mind does not like to look into chaos. It will look for patterns and probably find patterns if it sticks with it long enough. That's why we can see all sorts of things in clouds and in smoke and into facts and figures that on the surface don't seem to be anything related or doesn't seem to have a story there, but we start to find and uncover a story the closer we look. Not only are we hardwired to look for patterns and to find patterns, more often than not, the gaps or the missing pieces or the pieces that we need to make that pattern, it's our stuff. It comes from within us. We fill out the story so it starts to look good, so it starts to make some sense. Another part of the hardwiring system is our innate nature to associate to whatever we're looking at or thinking about, meaning that memories and experiences come to the present moment to match up with, to link onto something that we're thinking about or looking at or experiencing. So our associations get associated to what is in front of us. And frequently those associations get further connected to our associations, to our experiences and memories, and on it goes. From what was no pattern, no story becomes filled out. If all these hard wirings are going to work, Da Vinci knows that we have to immerse ourselves, not just look quietly and coolly at what's in front of us, what we want to bring our attention to, but we need to immerse ourselves, emotionally immerse ourselves, attention immerse ourselves, and give ourselves over to it, because immersion opens doors and it opens insights. Okay, let's get down to the practical steps. The way I have this laid out is I'm going to go through each step and make comments. Then at the very end, I'm going to list all the steps out so you can see them all in one place. Here we go. Step one is picking an object that you can have in front of you to look at. Later on, you'll probably pick items that you have in your mind's eye to do this process. But here, pick something that you can easily have in front of you because you'll want to examine it by looking at it carefully. Of course, the question is, pick what? That changes over time. In the beginning, I suggest picking something that's easy to get a hold of, something that's easy to hang on to and for your careful examination, and something that might be loaded with associations for you. For those who are more advanced, you'll be picking things that are probably more abstract, things where you have to look a little harder, things where something that you need to open up more and show up with less and less of an agenda, something that requires more work to get something going. For the advanced person, here's Da Vinci's wall. Find something with character, find something that has ambiguity to it, sit in front of it, or take a photograph of it and work with that and see what emerges. Here's something that isn't as abstract as a wall. This is a painting. This is something I found online, and we live in an age that's easy to find so many illustrations or paintings online that we can find something that is abstract, not well defined, but yet has something evocative about it, something that grabs us and makes us start to look for patterns and leads us into being connected to it through our own associations. Here, a person might say this is a landscape, a desert landscape, or some people would see it as a landscape with a distant city. Those are examples of something when we look at it, it's not apparent what it is, but as we slow down, as we open up, as we simply look, things start to emerge. Another thing we can find online are paintings that have patterns that we already recognize. Here we have people, streets, we have the weather. but yet it's ambiguous enough we're not quite sure what the people are looking at. Where is it? We have some sense of the time, but there's still a lot of mystery here. If we sit and open ourselves up and immerse in it, the mystery and the ambiguity of this more clearly defined painting will speak to us, and we will start to speak to it and make our own discoveries. It's extremely likely that you already have something, an object, something smaller. It's not a painting. You don't have to look online for it. But it's something that you've collected, or something you've gathered, or something that's already caught your curiosity, or something that you find pleasing to have around or to look at. That's a perfect object to do this work with. For most of us, we need to lower distractions. We need to have little else going on around us in the form of sound or people coming in or whatever, because we need to concentrate on the object. So think about what you need to do to get some privacy or get some time, or to lower what's going on around you before you start this. If you already know a method of relaxing, of toning things down from rushing around or being highly concentrated or worried about something or thinking about the past, this is the perfect time to use it. If you don't have a technique, I do have information for you at armchaildreamer.com that will help you get into the state that you need to be in, which is being receptive, not drowsy, receptive, clear-headed, thinking and feeling, but calmer. This does take practice. It does take time. For the moment, if you don't have anything already in your back pocket that you can bring out, use your feeling what you think relaxation is and feel into it, or feel in and call up a place where you've been in the past that you knew was very relaxing, and try to recall what was the physical tone, what were you feeling at the visceral level in that relaxing place that's special to you. Capture that, bring it into the moment, and you'll be much more open and much more receptive to see the insights that are about to come up. Relaxation will help us start to see into our object, but there are other ways to bring us closer to it and to give us that feeling and give us the power of being immersed in our object. To get closer to what we're looking at and to immerse in it, we're going to use an old technique that's been around for healing and meditation. There's something about doing this method of breathing. It's very simple, and it's a combination of breathing and imagination. And what it is as we breathe in, we imagine that the breath is coming through or from what we're looking at. In healing, it's usually a body part that needs some special attention. It's breathing in through the body part, maybe out through the body part. Here, we're going to breathe in the object that we're looking at. So let me go into detail. Let's go back to an item that is here in my home. First, I pick the object. Secondly, I put it in front of me here on a table not far from me. Number 3, I've relaxed, let go, and now it's time for the immersion phase. All I need to do is look at the object, and as I breathe in, not a heroic breath, not a special breath whatsoever, just a normal breath, as I'm breathing in, I imagine as though, and I feel as though, the air is being pulled in through the marbles, through the jar, over to me. So it's bringing this object closer to me and closer to me and closer with me with each breath. I usually have to do my breathing a little differently, or my imagining about breathing a little differently. Instead of pulling it through the jar, I scoop up the air in my mind's eye that's around the jar and let it swirl around the jar towards me as I breathe in. That's the difference. I may alternate between breathing through the marbles or through the center of the object, with that bringing in the space and the air that's around the jar. I may go back and forth until I get a feeling, and this takes practice and takes experience, I get a feeling that I'm slipping more into the experience of what I'm looking at, that I have developed at least an edge of immersion. If you're using something like this painting that we looked at earlier, we can breathe into the center of the painting. We can breathe in the space around where the people are. We can step into it. This is very inviting. We can see ourselves in our mind's eye of being on the street, feeling the rain, seeing the wetness of the stone, maybe even hearing the rain. So here we've added an element of the breathing practice, but we've gone beyond that, the element of stepping into the space and using our mind's eye to assume that we're in there, and what would we feel? What would we detect if we were in that space? What would we hear? And through the logic and through the memory of replaying what sound, the sound of rain might be on the umbrella and on the sidewalk and the smells and so forth, we immerse that way. 3, be open to awareness of everything, whether that's small or if it's a large something or another, like a memory or an insight, or maybe it's just a gut level feeling. Be open that it can come in many different forms, but is all worthy of looking at and remembering. So what are we likely to see? Some people will spend time looking at the outward appearance of something. Now that can morph, that can change, but it's more like the stuff that's within us, the feelings that we have, the ideas that we have, the memories and associations that we have. Those are the things that you're going to see early, and those are the things you're going to be seeing change, more so than the physical appearance. It's up to you how much time you want to spend. It can be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You'll find that as you get better at this, you get a lot of content in quite a short period of time. But when you're done, make a mental note that you're wrapping up, that you're shifting gears, you're shifting to something else, that you'll remember what you were attending to, but know that you're putting an end to that. I suggest that people move a little bit, move their arms or stand up, just to reconnect back to where they were, back to the room around them, back to the time of day that when they started this and where they're at in the moment. So reconnect. You can always return to this, come back at another time, but say goodbye to it at this point. Okay, we're at the end of this approach, this technique. This is the way that you can look at almost anything or everything and find that there's something more there, something more than what you've noticed before. This may or may not be Leonardo's wall, but it's certainly his process. As promised, I'm going to summarize this in this little diagram showing all the steps, so you don't have to go back and look through at everything. Here it is in summary form. Well, that's it for today. Thank you very much for being here. And if you're looking for more information, come on over to armchaildreamer.com, where you're going to find tips, tools, and techniques for visualizing, dreaming, and imagining. This is Gary Goodwin, founder of The Armchair Dreamer, and I will see you next time.